Happy Saturday, First Congregational friends. You may be wondering why I'm standing outside the University of Oregon. Well, it's because it's Black History Month, and one of the ways we're celebrating Black History Month at First Congregational is by focusing on a particular African-American individual in Eugene who faced significant opposition from the white community and yet took that energy and produced some beautiful fruits. So today's question is, who was the first African-American student at the University of Oregon? A couple of hints. It was a woman, and it took place, she enrolled in 1917. Now, you may not know the answer to that question off the top of your head, but you're going to learn a lot about this individual by the end of this video. But first, Sunday's coming, and we are now approaching the final two services in our Earthly Wisdom series, where we're focusing on Jesus' parables of creation in some way that teach us something important about living life today. This Sunday is going to be kind of a wild ride. It's really, this Sunday and next may just be the two most important Sundays of this full series, where we'll be focusing on the parable of the budding fig tree in Matthew 24. Also on Sunday, the youth will be letting us know it's not only Super Bowl Sunday, but Super Bowl Sunday. They'll be telling us what Super Bowl Sunday is and how to participate in that. And also after worship, we'll be holding our second of two budget forums. If you'd like to look at the proposed budget for 2026 with Tony Foy and others, ask your questions. We invite you warmly to the chapel after worship. Now, looking ahead just a little bit, Lent is very quickly approaching. Ash Wednesday is on February 18th, and we will be holding our traditional Ash Wednesday service, but modified in light of the need for some communal lament, shall I say, these days. Mark Lindbergh will be offering a very special message. We'll have some special liturgy to express ourselves, and also, of course, we'll be followed with the imposition of ashes, that mark of not only our brokenness and the world's brokenness, but also the hope of God's work within it. We'll be also preceding that service at 6 o'clock with a Connections dinner, where it's going to be a potluck this year, soup and bread. So find some soup, cook up some soup, bring it, or bread. And we'll start that at 6 o'clock, and the worship service will take place in the sanctuary at 6:30. We'll then start on Sunday with a 7-part series that I'm tremendously excited about, that will involve both worship services and small groups and a special revamped Converging Paths podcast that I'm filming from my home studio with a Jewish rabbi and a Zen Buddhist teacher, who all the three of us will be commenting on the subject of our worship, that will be exploring worship from the perspective of these three world religions. I've already begun filming this and recording, and I cannot tell you the chemistry and the insights that come from these individuals is tremendous. It's really going to show how, when we sit down with our interfaith neighbors, it helps us understand better our own faith, and also how to live life with resilience and resistance. That series will be called The Inner Work, an interfaith exploration of the 7 deadly sins and 7 lively virtues. Now, you may be wondering why we're looking at inner work. Well, it is Lent, and so we traditionally do that. But this series will be very strongly tied to also how we live life today in the outer world. You're going to see how these 7 sins are not so much moral qualities so much as burdens, and the lively virtues are also not so much moral qualities, but ways that we unburden ourselves. And through the unburdening, we actually not only change our personal lives very close to home, but also change the world around us. It'll be a tremendous series, small group opportunities. If you've never participated in a group, there's no better time to do this, because we'll have both the Sunday worship and the Converging Paths work to look at this truly interfaith perspective and benefit from many forms of wisdom. Now, in terms of our Black History Month trivia question, the first African-American period to enroll at the University of Oregon in 1917 was Mabel Janet Bird. She enrolled here and was welcomed to participate in classes. That may be amazing to many, but she was also excluded from student housing and from participation in any of the community organizations, such as sororities and such. So while she was included in the academic life, she was very much excluded from the community life, which may have had something to do with why she transferred to the University of Washington after 2 years here to complete her degree in economics. Now, she would later return to Oregon, to Portland, where she taught English in the segregated YWCA there, and also became the vice president of the local NAACP chapter. And it was during that time that she invited none other than W.E.B. Du Bois to speak at the University of Oregon, and that started a lifelong friendship between the two. Now, from there, Mabel's life quickly turned to the world stage. She wrote for Crisis magazine here in the U.S., but then studied in England under a Quaker scholarship looking at poverty relief issues, and then later accepted a position in Geneva, Switzerland with the League of Nations International Labor Organization, where she was researching working conditions in Africa and advocating for better employment practices there. Now, she returned to the U.S. during a time of the rise of fascism in Europe and the rise of racial violence in the U.S. And Mabel saw a connection between the two, the struggle for racial justice and the struggle against fascism. And so she participated not only in a Chicago-based anti-war organization, but also an organization that was committed to anti-fascism resistance here and abroad. Still later, Mabel would teach at Fisk University, and then eventually accepted a position as the first African American to work in Franklin Delano Roosevelt's National Recovery Organization. It was there in D.C. that she was forcibly removed from a white-only restaurant, and rather than taking that sitting down, so to speak, she confronted the senators in D.C., and those confrontations eventually led to the desegregation of D.C.'s restaurants. Well, that's the story of Mabel Janet Bird, a story that teaches us a hard truth, that while exclusion can wound, it can also awaken a fierce energy within us that can eventually change the world. Well, I look forward to seeing you on Sunday, and why not invite a friend?